Hi all. The last lecture I have discussed the derivative product of arithmetical functions and the definition of the identity function with respect to the derivative product. Then now we have to move on to section 2.7. In this section we will see what is the derivative inverse of an arithmetical functions and Mobius inversion formula. So 2.7 starts with a theorem. If f is an arithmetical function with f of 1 not equal to 0, there is a unique arithmetical function f inverse called the Dirichlet inverse of f, such that f star f inverse equal to I and f inverse star f. Moreover, f inverse is given by the formula f inverse of 1 is equal to 1 by f of 1. F inverse of n is equal to minus 1 divided by f of 1, summation d divides n and d less than n, f of n by d, f inverse of d for n greater than 1. Actually, this asserts a Dirichlet inverse for a arithmetical function with f of 1 not equal to 0. We will see the set of all arithmetical functions form a monoid, and set of all arithmetical functions cannot form a group under Dirichlet multiplication. So this theorem asserts that along with the theorems in the the section 2.6, we can say that set of all arithmetical functions with f of 1 not equal to 0 form a group. In fact, it is an abelian group with respect to Dirichlet inverse. Now we have to prove this theorem for the existence of the Dirichlet inverse. That we start the proof like this. For a given f, we need to solve the equation f star f inverse of n is equal to I of n. Then f inverse is called the Dirichlet inverse of f. And we need to prove that this equation has a unique solution for all n. So we start with the first case as n equal to 1. We have to solve the equation f star f inverse of 1 is equal to I of 1, that is equal to 1. F inverse of 1 is equal to 1 by f of 1. That statement implies that f inverse of 1 is equal to 1 by f of 1. Of course, f star f inverse of 1, that means that star denotes the Dirichlet product. So that is sigma d divides 1 f of d f inverse of n by d. N is 1 here. So the only possible divisor for 1 is 1. Then that summation contains only one term, that is f of 1 into f inverse of 1 by 1, that is also f inverse of 1. So f inverse of 1 can be solved using f of 1. So if f of 1 is fixed, then f inverse of 1 is also fixed. On the other way, we can say that f inverse of 1 can be uniquely determined using the value of f of 1. So f inverse of 1 exists only if f of 1 not equal to 0. Next, we have to find f inverse of n for n greater than 1. We need to prove that f inverse of n is unique for n greater than 1. For that, we assume f inverse of k have been uniquely determined for all k less than n. That means using the value of f inverse of 1, we will find the unique value of f inverse of 2. Using the values of f inverse of 1 and f inverse of 2, we will find the unique value for f inverse of 3. That's the method we have to adapt. So we need to solve the equation f star f inverse of n is equal to I of n, or by definition sigma d divides n f of n by d f inverse of d equal to 0. When we extract one term corresponding to d is equal to n, we can get f of 1 into f inverse of n plus sigma d divides n, d less than n, f of n by d f inverse of d equal to 0. That d less than n is because of the term f of 1 into f inverse of 1. We have already extracted the term corresponding to d is equal to n first. So the rest of the summation contains only the terms corresponding to d less than n. From this you can write f inverse of n is equal to minus 1 divided by f of 1 sigma d divides n d less than n f of n by d f inverse of d. If all these the terms in the right hand sides are uniquely determined, then we can say that f inverse of n is uniquely determined. So our assumption is f inverse of d are known for all devices d less than n, and that is uniquely determined. So using those values, we can define f inverse of n is equal to minus 1 by f of 1 summation d divides n d less than n f of n by d f inverse of d. This is valid, or this is consistent, because we have assumed that f of 1 not equal to 0 and f inverse of d are uniquely determined for every d less than n. So this establishes the existence of the inverse, Dirichlet inverse of an arithmetical function with f of 1 not equal to 0. So I have added a proposition. In fact, this is not in the textbook. So in the textbook, this proposition can be seen as a remark or a consequences of the theorems in the sections 2.6 and 2.7. So what is the remark? Let G, if it denote a set of all f is an arithmetical function with f of 1 not equal to 0 as G, then we can prove that G star, where star is the Dirichlet convolution of, is an abelian group. Okay, for this we need to prove the closure property first. So we start with two arbitrary element of G, f comma G belongs to G, then f of 1 not equal to 0 and G of 1 not equal to 0, both are arithmetical functions. Then what is f star G? F star G of 1 is f of 1 into G of 1. That we are given that f of 1 and G of 1 are not equal to non-zero quantities. Then f of 1 into G of 1 is not equal to 0. Then we can say that f star G is also an element of the set, the script G. Okay. And theorem 2.6, the associativity can be proved using the theorem we have already discussed in the section 2.6. The existence is also proved. We just proved the existence of the inverse of an arithmetical function with this property, say f of 1 not equal to 0. And the theorem in the section 2.6, we already proved the commutativity. So the set of all arithmetical function with f of 1 not equal to 0 form an abelian group. That means we can get a group structure, at least a group structure in the set of all arithmetical function with this property. So in the next sessions, we will see the consequences of this group structure. Since it is an abelian group, then there is an important remark: f comma G belongs to G. Then what is the inverse of f star G? The inverse of f star G is nothing but f inverse star G inverse. In an arbitrary group, f star G inverse is nothing but a G inverse star f inverse. Here we have the commutativity. Then you need not worry about the order of the inverses. Next, we will see an important function. This is denoted by u of n is equal to 1 for all positive integer n. Now we recall the divisor sum formula for mu of d. We have sigma d divides n, mu of d is equal to I. That implies sigma d divides n, mu of d, u of n by d equal to I, because u of n by d is always 1. U of anything is 1. Okay. So sigma d divides n, mu of d, u of n by d is equal to I. That implies mu star u is equal to I. Hence, we can say that the inverse of mu is u and inverse of u is mu. Both are mutually inverses. Since we have a group structure, the inverses will be unique. So we need not worry about the other inverses of these arithmetical functions. Now we have an important formula, say Mobius inversion formula. So using the from the divisor sum formula for an arithmetical function, we can reverse those functions. Okay. So f of 1 is equal to sigma d divided on g of d. We can consider this equation as the divisor sum formula of an arithmetical function g. So we can solve for f here, or solve for g from this equation, or we can invert these f and g. That is also a consequence of group structure. So theorem says that f of n is equal to sigma d divides on g of d if and only if g of n is equal to sigma d divides on f of d times mu of n by d. Okay, so we start with LHS. F of n is equal to sigma d divided on g of d. That implies f is equal to g star u, because u of n is equal to 1 for every n. So we can insert a 1 in the right hand side of the first equation. Then that can be translated to f is equal to g star u. We know that mu is the inverse of u. Then by operating mu on both sides of the equation, we will get g is equal to f star mu. Then that can be translated to g of n is equal to sigma d divided by f of d mu of n by d. This is nothing but the theorem. Then one remark is we will apply this in Mobius inversion formula in case of uh, Euler-Torsion function phi. N is equal to sigma d divided by phi of d. That if and only if phi of n can be written as sigma d divided by mu of d n by d. Okay. In the section 2.8, we will see a new function, new arithmetical function called Mancourt function. It is denoted by capital lambda of n. The definition is very simple. If n is equal to p raised to m for some prime number p and some m greater than or equal to 1, then the value of that n is log p under this Mancourt function. In all other cases, the value is 0. So some of the values of this lambda, some of the values of lambda of n, if n is equal to 1, the value will be 0, because 1 cannot be written as a power of a prime. Value of 2, lambda of 2 is log 2, lambda of 3 is log 3, lambda of 4 is log 2 again, because 4 can be written as 2 square. Then n is equal to 2 square, then lambda of 2 square is nothing but log 2, and so on. Then next we will immediately find divisor sum formula for this, that is sigma d divides n lambda of d is equal to log n. So the proof is very simple. If n is equal to 1, then LHS and RHS will be 0, because log 1 is 0 and sigma d divides n lambda of d. If n is equal to 1, the only possible positive divisor is 1, then lambda of 1 equal to 0. So the summation contains only one term, lambda of 1, that is nothing but 0, and then LHS equal to RHS. So that is vacuously true. Now we move on to the values of n which is greater than 1. We write n is equal to a product of powers of primes. Then taking a logarithm on both sides, we can get log n is equal to summation k equal to 1 to r a k log pk. Now we start with the divisor sum formula, sigma d divides n lambda of d, that can be written as sigma k equal to 1 to r sigma m equal to 1 to ak log pk. Because we need not worry about all those devices, but the devices of the form p raised to m. Okay, those values will give the non-zero values for lambda. So sigma d divides n lambda of d, we need to consider all the devices of n. N is nothing but p1 raised to a1, p2 raised to a2, etc., pr raised to ar. So the if we list the devices as 1, p1, p1 square, p1 cube, etc., we need not consider the devices like p1, p2 and p1, p2 square, etc., because the lambda value of all those devices that contains more than one prime devices, the value is nothing but 0. So we need not worry about all those devices like p1, p2, p1, p2 square, and p1 square, p2, and so on. So we consider only the devices of the form 1, p1, p1 square, p1 cube, etc., p1 raised to a1. Then we start with p2, p2 square, p2 cube, etc., p2 raised to a2. Then we move on to p3, p3 square, and so on. So the sigma d divides n lambda of d can be written as lambda of 1 plus lambda of p1, lambda of plus lambda of p2 plus lambda of 1 plus lambda of p1 lambda of 1 plus lambda of p1 plus lambda of p1 square plus etc. up to lambda of p1 raised to n1. Then we start with lambda of p2, lambda of p2 square, lambda of p2 cube, etc. lambda of p2 raised to a2 plus etc. So that can be written as sigma k equal to 1 to r, sigma m equal to 1 to ak log pk. That is nothing but k equal to 1 to r ak log pk. Because log pk plus log pk plus ak times, that is nothing but ak times log pk. So that will give log n. So divisor sum formula of lambda of d is nothing but log n. Now, if you use a Mobius inversion formula on this divisor sum formula, we can get a formula for lambda of n. This is a useful formula. We will use it later. So we start with divisor sum formula of Mangold function. Log n is equal to sigma d divides n. So that is not mu of d. I think that is lambda of d. Okay, I have corrected it. Log n is equal to sigma d divides n lambda of d. That is nothing but the divisor sum formula for lambda. That implies lambda of n is equal to sigma d divides n mu of d log n by d. That is using Mobius inversion formula. That is equal to log n times sigma d divides n mu of d minus sigma d divides n mu of d log d. We have splitted that log n by d as log n minus log d. So in the first summation, log n is a constant. That summation depends only on d. So that log n can be taken out. Then the rest of the term in the first term, sigma d divides n mu of d, that is nothing but the divisor sum formula for mu. We have already proved that that is nothing but I of n. I of n is the greatest integer function 1 by n. So the first term can be written as I of n log n minus sigma d divides n mu of d log d. I of n log n is always 0 because I of n log n for n equal to 1, we have I of 1 is 1 and but log 1 is 0. So for n equal to 1, this I of n log n is always 0. For any n greater than 1, I of n is 0. Therefore, I of n log n is equal to 0, whatever be the value of log n. So that equation can be reduced to minus sigma d divides n mu of d log t. So you will get lambda of n is equal to, by Mobius inversion formula, that is sigma d divides n mu of d log n by d, and by the simplification we can get minus summation d divides n mu of d log t. Okay, thank you.